Finally, a BABYMETAL performance with MomoMetal recorded alongside the band, but this performance on the first take has been really quite surprisingly divisive. So I'm going to spend a lot of this review breaking down what I've heard people online complaining about with this song, and kind of countering against a lot of those complaints, whilst at the same time giving certain concessions to things that maybe I think they could have done better. But hey, this is BABYMETAL on the first take doing their version of The One, a different version, especially for the first take. Let's get into breaking this down. Hi there and welcome back to Japan, where yes, BABYMETAL did a piano version of The One, and I know they've already got a piano version, but they did this take specially studio live for the YouTube channel, The First Take, that I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of. Probably all of you if you're watching this video, but yeah, it's basically a studio live performance channel. So this was really following very much on the heels of the MONOCHROME studio live piano version they did as well, which I absolutely loved. MONOCHROME was already a song that I was really raving about. My favourite song probably from the most recent album. We'll see. I'm still not decided 100% yet. And the piano version just really brought out all the best things about it. However, there's been a lot of complaints about this version of The One. So let's have a little talk about it, break down the various points I've read, and I'm going to try and counter them. Now the first one is probably the one that I would most agree with, so I'm going to get this out of the way, which is in regards to the piano. Now I did actually like the piano arrangement. I thought the piano arrangement was very interesting here, but a lot of people complained about the sound of the piano. It sounded a bit plinky, a bit like not real, and I do kind of agree. It sounded a bit more like a kind of a digital piano, like a digital representation of a piano, which is interesting because in the performance of MONOCHROME sounded really thick and rounded. Now that could have been because of the fact that the arrangement for MONOCHROME had a lot more low notes, so you got more of a sort of body sound at the piano, whereas this was much higher up on the register, so it sounded not quite as full, not quite as lively. However, whether they were both done on electric piano or not, which isn't really a problem, this one certainly comes off sounding much thinner than MONOCHROME did. And so, yeah, I can understand that a lot of people didn't really think that that worked so well, especially for a big sounding song like this. But this was a much more delicate version of the song. And in that sense, I did like the fact that they found something interesting, they found something delicate in it. I think a lot of people who've been following this channel for a while and know that we're always honest on this channel will know that The One is probably one of my least favourite BABYMETAL songs, which is always contentious as it's so directly for the fans. I never got hugely into it. However, I thought that this more personal sounding, smaller scale take of the song for me actually worked better. So yes, the delicate side of the piano I liked, but I will agree the piano tone overall was not great. Now the next issue, strangely enough, was actually Sue, and that's quite surprising. First of all, I'm going to say I think Sue's vocal performance was fantastic, just as it was on MONOCHROME. I think MONOCHROME got more out of her voice. However, this was another fantastic performance. I absolutely loved it. I can see nothing wrong with how she performed, and I would fight that one tooth and nail. However, I will agree that there was something very interesting about hearing so openly her singing the English lyrics with that kind of American accent. Now, I am not American, so I'm going to let American people tell me. But yes, it did feel like the accent was a little bit much, almost like she was doing a parody of an American accent. I want more of a consensus, because I've heard people say all kinds of things here. What do you think about the accent? I say that to me went very much by the wayside, just because I thought the singing was so beautiful. I've said before that I prefer Japanese artists to sing in Japanese where possible. I don't feel that they need to write songs in English specifically for a Western audience. And yet, by the same token, I do understand that Japanese, I mean, one of the great things about it is because it's based on syllables, it's a very musical language. However, there's a lot of sounds that you can't really do in Japanese that come up in English lyrics. So I totally understand songwriters and musicians and singers especially wanting to do songs in the English language as well. So it's almost like using a whole different colour palette for when it's different syllables, different sounds you can make. So I get that. However, yeah, I prefer hearing Sue sing in Japanese. I thought she sung great here. So maybe I think some people might have been like slightly, their ears might have been perked up by the very strong American accent coming through. But yeah, I think once you just sort of say, listen to the sound of her voice, beautiful control as ever. Yeah, it was gorgeous on that front. Now, one of the things that wasn't talked about so much was, of course, the presence of Momoko, because MomoMetal, first real performance where we've heard her on a recorded recording, I think, and someone's going to correct me, I'm sure. There's going to be some BABYMETAL fan out there who's going to know something that I've totally missed. However, I think that it was really nice hearing her alongside Moa, hearing their voices work together, and boy, did their voices work together. They had a nice harmonic back. It was just so nice to hear Sue supported by two voices. Yeah, we got the dynamic, the BABYMETAL dynamic, pretty much to varying degrees from year. Dot has been Sue with two voices behind her, and of course that changed when it was just Moa. However, it is such a pleasure to hear two voices working together in the background, and yeah, Momo and Moa, their voices work well together. So that was one of the biggest takeaways for me, so I really enjoyed that side of it. Yes, I do look forward to the time that we're going to get to hear Momo doing something that's maybe going to highlight how she's different from Yui, and maybe showing some of what she's going to bring herself to the group to add something a little bit different moving forwards. And I'm sure we're all interested in seeing her actually bring her own element to the band, but I think it's nice having her sort of starting in a place where she's more just sort of filling in that gap and then starting to bring her own sound later on. I think they've been very careful about the way they've eased us into the very presence of MomoMetal. I mean, I said from when she was announced, the fact that as far as I'm concerned, she's already kind of been a member of the group for a while and is just waiting for them to announce it. So I think a similar thing here. We're getting eased in. I think this is why they've announced her right on the back of the other one coming out, giving us a fair amount of time to get used to it before we then start hearing her voice on the records. And yeah, but this was nice. This was nice. All she had to do was fill in that gap, work alongside Maya, and she did that perfectly. Okay, so let's have one last swing back round to the arrangement. Now, a lot of people have pointed out there's various different versions of the one that have been performed. There is apparently another piano version. I think I've heard it a while ago. I've got to be honest, I don't remember it particularly well. So I'm just kind of scoring this more as what it is rather than comparing it to anything else. As I've said already, I kind of prefer it as a more personal version than the big sort of studio version that we're used to hearing, and I've heard that played big and loud live. I just kind of felt this was a nicer version of the song than that, and so I really like that. However, one thing I'm going to point out, I probably like it even more because the first time I heard this, the first time when I heard it, when they premiered it, I think there was something wrong with my sound output because I was in our Discord saying, I had this really weird sound, like this looping sound going on. I found out later there was a problem with the output and I was getting like a really heavy echo on the whole recording. So I listened to it and I was listening to it over and over. Oh, okay, that's really weird. And so I was doing my notes for this review and a lot of it was about this really weird effect. And then I went and loaded the song back up to listen to it again. I was like, oh, it's gone now. So a lot of the things I said initially about the arrangement, I was hearing something that no one else was hearing. Hearing it now, as it's meant to be, I don't know. It's simple. Yeah, I think the lack of any body to the piano is kind of working against it, but I like the delicacy. The strings are used nicely. I just think it has a nice personal sound. Yes, it has a personal sound that is slightly undercut by the piano sounding a bit fake. Yes, it is slightly undercut by the fact that the strings themselves, again, they sound a little bit fake. They sound like they're being played for a keyboard. So I think there could have been more done, especially on the budget that BABYMETAL are working with, to make it sound more live. However, I still liked it. I mean, as an arrangement, I liked it. I think my issue was more the sound. I think they could have gone for a better sound. They could have recorded the backing better, and if it was played live, I'm sure they could have got a real piano in there. I've seen plenty of other people on the first take with a real piano. I'm sure there's one bouncing around that studio. I'm sure they could have got a couple of people on strings, a little string quartet in there. On BABYMETAL budget, you could do that. But then again, this is the band who they don't pay for music videos anymore. Amuse. So in conclusion, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was a version that I did prefer to the one that I usually hear, the normal version of the one, even played live. I preferred this version. I thought it was more personal. I think it conveyed the emotion in a much more clear, delicate way. I didn't like it as much as the version of MONOCHROME. Then again, I prefer MONOCHROME as a song, but I went back and listened to MONOCHROME alongside this, and I must admit MONOCHROME just kind of works a little bit better. It's a shame because I'd like to have heard Momo in MONOCHROME as well. Momo and Moa in MONOCHROME. Oh, there's a lot of Moas in there. I would have liked to have seen that. However, this was good. It was nice to see Momo having something to do on a recording. It was nice to hear a delicate version of the song, and even if it wasn't as good as Monochrome, it was still good and enjoyable. So I really liked that. And those are my thoughts. As always, get in the comments to tell me what you think, and until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these, for now, ciao ciao.